Welcome, everyone, to Squid and the Ultimate Elite Fan Show. I'm Mike Wilson, the Ultimate Elite fan. Joining me, as always, my winger, Ricky Squid Vibe. Squid, the days are getting shorter. That may impact your golf game somewhat, but it means hockey isn't far away.
It means hockey's not that far away, but it won't impact my golf game because we
You
play
play in the
early
morning.
enough that we don't have to worry about it getting dark.
Well, what about now? We're sharing a very similar story here. You had your grandson for the last couple of days. How did that go?
I got to tell you, he wore me out. I swear, I haven't been that sore and tired in I don't know how long. Pushing him on the swing, running him after him, up and down on the floor, playing different things with him and all that. It was like, oh my goodness, this is hard.
Well, I got my 5-year-old granddaughter Holly with me this week, so here in Florida. So, in one afternoon, we've already had a sit down where she's going to take it easy on me for the rest of the week, okay? Because I'm ready to have a nap too once this is done. So, we're both in the same boat on that standpoint. So, uh, I said again, we talked about hockey being close because the chatter on social media is heating up. So, let's start there. I know we don't always like to go to the guys out on Twitter and all that kind of stuff, but here we go. Let's talk about some of the popular topics regarding the Leafs this week. Now, number one on the list, being dissected. What Leaf matter is never really dissected all over the place.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's got to center around the alleged request demand by Mikheyev to be traded at the end of the season that has social media, the GMs, all in a tizzy. So let me offer this thought up first. Here's a guy who becomes a free agent after this season, making 1.6 million. I'm sure he has a computer, and like the rest of us, can punch up Cap Friendly to see the lay of the land, especially if he hasn't read a newspaper, watched TV, or listened to the radio in the last few years to be aware that the tight cap quandary the Maple Leafs are actually in. He would also be aware of the team under those constraints has marched a plethora of forwards the last 18 months on low-end tickets, the highest being Nick Ritchie this year at 2.5 for the next 2 years. The expectations for up-and-comers like Nick Robinson, Mikhail Ambrov, Alex Steves, who was talked out of his last year at Notre Dame to turn pro, along with Case, Bunting, etc., who all have one thing in common: they're cheap. All they need is a couple of those guys to work out.
Yeah, I mean, and I think they'll get that. I really do believe that a couple, two, maybe three of those guys are going to work out just fine. And you know what, Mikheyev, he may get his wish later on down the road if these guys do work out because he might be out of a job. Period. So if I was him, I wouldn't worry about it too much. You're gonna get a job and you're gonna keep it all year, or you're gonna lose it in the first month and then you're gonna get traded. So you're gonna get your wish one way or the other.
Well, I mean, I think the point I'm trying to make through all this is even though the young guys will probably start the year with the Marlies, they are a few subway stops away from Scotiabank Arena from Coca-Cola Coliseum. If his agent Dan Millstone is doing his job, which it looks like he is, it's to get his player paid well. Top 6 players get paid. Checkers are easily acquired, so they don't. The exception to the rule is Tampa's dynamic third line this year after back-to-back cups. Mikheyev has had a chance to play top 6 and may again, but he looks relegated to bottom 6 at this point. Now, my suggestion to his agent, and if he's listening, we all know they all do, invest in a hammer and a chisel to chip the cement off his client's hands. Because unless he starts scoring, and God knows how many opportunities he's missed over the last 2 years, he will be a bottom 6 player. The bottom six money.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right, Mike. And I mean, when you look at him and you look at the other guy,
Engvall.
the sweet Engvall, and I can't believe how many opportunities these guys get. And I mean, grade A opportunities to score, and they just can't put it in the net. So
Yeah.
Engvall and Mikheyev are definitely two of those type guys. They're good players. They're good defensively. They can, get offensive opportunities, but they can't put the puck in the net. So you're right. They're probably both destined for bottom 6, or they're going to be moved on if these other guys come in and get the job done.
Well, listen, they're big guys. They're strong. They're aggressive. They're great on the puck. They chase the pucks down very
Yeah,
well. But you're not going to get paid for that because you can find those guys. So all they're trying to do is move the needle. So I don't think he's trying to be malicious in his comments to be moved because he's trying to get himself paid and he wants to go to an opportunity where he can play. And he's not going to get that chance here if he doesn't start scoring. He's not going to get a chance anywhere, but at least somewhere else, he may, on a lower end team, get more opportunity to play. So here's my solution. And again, we know you're listening, Mickey, and we'll call you Mickey for short. Put your head down, work harder, and don't come up for air until June. Then we'll see where the ball lies at the end of all of that. How about that? What do you think, Squid?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you 100%. And you know what? The thing is, at 1.6 million, I mean, if you have a good season, you're not going down. You're only going to go up. And
that's right.
Either that or they got to move you because they can't afford you. Or he's a free agent, so I don't think he should worry too much. Go out, do your job, like you said. You know, put some points on the board, show that you can play on regularly, and be a good 200-foot forward, and you'll get paid.
Yeah, so we'll watch them with a lot of interest, as we will with a lot of these other guys that are coming in the lineup and are going to get an opportunity to play. And two of the guys that are going to be very key to all of that and to success for some of these guys would be Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, who both spoke to the media this week and enter year 6. I mean, man, oh man, time is flying by. Both carried themselves very well, I thought, knowing full well for the first time in their careers, people will be paying attention to what they do. Not so much in the regular season, but what happens, they'll be solely judged on what happens after April the 1st, if they get there. And God help us if they don't. Now, that's a tough pill to swallow for some young kids, but especially guys who've been the darlings of the city since the day they were drafted. Their true mettle will certainly be tested as this season progresses.
Yeah, there's no question. You know, I mean, they're under the gun. The whole team is. The coaches are, the general manager, the president, probably everybody are under the gun. I mean, this is a team that, you know, they got to start winning in the playoffs. They haven't won a round in 12 years or something like that. You know, I don't even care what they do in the regular season. Just get in the playoffs, but find a way to start winning in the playoffs. And I mean, when you're talking about these young guys, they're in their 6th year. I mean, that's unbelievable. By now, they should have figured it out. They should have figured out exactly what it takes to win in the playoffs. And they brought in veterans that have kind of showed them the way and talked to them about it and all that kind of stuff. And that hasn't worked yet either. So, you know, I don't know what the next step is.
Well, we know it does take time. And just as a footnote to all that, let's look at the recent Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning for a minute. Steven Stamkos was drafted in 2008. Victor Hedman, 2009. Nikita Kucherov, 2011. Andrei Vasilevsky, 2012. Braden Point in 14. They didn't win until 2020-21. Yes, they got close a few times, but that only counts in horseshoes. Yes, I know they experienced the feeling of winning a series, but still it took time.
Yeah, I mean, but one of the problems is the Leafs don't have a Victor Hedman and they don't have a Vasilevsky. So,
well, that's a good start right there.
I mean, because you got probably if he's not the best, he's one of the best defensemen in the league, and obviously they have the best goalie. There's no question about that one. I don't believe.
But it still took over 10 years to win, right? With both those guys. And those two guys are two of the studs of the league. So there is a process. And listen, even Chicago.
But then Vasilevsky, though, he's only played probably the last 5 years.
But he was drafted in 2012. Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, there's an 8-year process there for him. But he played the last, whatever it is, last 5 or 6 years. But even Chicago. Look at Chicago during their run. I mean, the key quarterback to that was Duncan Keith. He was drafted in 2002. Brent Seabrook and Corey Crawford were 2003. Taves and Kane were 06, 07. They won in 10. And then he won again a couple years later, again after that. So there is.
So what are you saying, Mike? That we got to wait another 4 years?
Well, year 6.
Come on.
Year 6, somewhere between 6 and 10. Okay, let's just throw a number in there somewhere. Okay, between 6 and 10, it would sort of average it out between them. So this is not unusual. But just playing under this microscope just sort of it accentuates things even more. So,
well, yeah, it does. I mean, but again, and I've said this a million times, and I'm sure that most of those guys that are playing in Toronto on that team, at least the big guys anyway, they got tough skin. But I said, if you don't have thick skin in Toronto, you can't play here because you're going to get scrutinized every single day, no matter what you do. And if you don't have thick skin, you can't handle it. So obviously, these guys have the ability to handle it. But again, how much more can they take if they don't win in the playoffs? Because they're going to get grilled like crazy.
Well, again, I guess we can just maybe take this one step further. And as we were doing our analysis on the teams Leafs will be playing in the division this year, let's look at the last team in our list, and they're last for a reason. It may serve as a good reminder for those fans who are ripping the Maple Leafs shortcomings because the Buffalo Sabres are a stark reminder of what the Leafs once were. Not that long ago, by the way. And my good friend on the other side of this camera with me can attest to how life was playing for that club in the 1980s as we painfully watched what was going on with the circus atmosphere around that hockey club. So I think all of us, including you, Squid, wouldn't you love to have played into this version of the Maple Leafs?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, or even the version in the 2000s with Pat Quinn and that group. I mean, so much more professionally run than the club was in the 80s. And even in the 90s, they started to do things
Yeah.
differently and more professionally. But yeah, there's no question. I mean, and not to mention, I'd probably be making about $12 million too.
Well, that goes aside too with that. Okay, that would come. And if you scored 50, man, oh man. Well, I mean, here it is in Buffalo. I mean, I don't feel that sorry for him because we weren't there that long ago ourselves. But it's a case of an owner who's a fan first, trying to be involved. His other team, and this is the Pagulas we're talking about. His other team, the Bills, were an embarrassment until they allowed the right people to do their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Success has
Yeah.
started to come away for the Bills, as we've seen, just because they're staying out of it. I mean, whether this is true or not, I've been told that Mr. Pagula used to attend scout meetings. Now, apparently, it wasn't malicious in his part to do this, but rather to learn how it all worked. So, how can a scout or anyone in management offer a concern or voice an opinion with the boss present? I mean, what if the said scout suggests moving a certain player who happened to be the owner's favorite player, his wife's favorite player, even worse, the housekeeper's favorite player? And then all of a sudden it doesn't work out. How long's that guy working in the organization? He's not going to open his mouth. So, I mean, these are the type of little things that just implode teams.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you on that too, Mike. I mean, the owner should get out of there. Just let the people he hires do their job. And if he doesn't like the way they're doing their job, then you let them go. I mean, that's what you do when you own a team. Get the hell out of there and let the people you hire and pay good money to run the team and do the things they need to do to get the team back on track and get into the playoffs. And if you can't do that, you're asking for a circus, and right now that's kind of what Buffalo is.
Well, never mind that. Now you got to deal with this Jack Eichel situation with the operation that's been sort of approved to get done, whether it gets done or not get done. He's got a 10-pack, a 10 million a year he makes. That's a big piece for somebody to swallow if they do end up moving him. So until that gets settled, what can they do?
Well, they can put out all these young guys that they have and see if they can play. And, I mean, the one thing I will say is don't fall asleep on the Sabres, especially if you're the Maple Leafs, because they tend to play very well against the
You're
Maple
absolutely
Leafs.
Correct.
The rivalry is intense. And so don't fall asleep on the Sabres if you're the Maple Leafs or if you're any team for that matter, because they got nothing to lose. They're going to have a bunch of guys that are fighting for jobs in the National Hockey League, and they want to stay there. So, you know that every single night when you play the Buffalo Sabres, you're going to have 20 guys that are going to be working their tails off. So they're at least going to get that. Do they have the talent? No. But you know what? Hard work can overcome talent sometimes, and that's what they've done recently on a lot of nights against the Maple Leafs and other teams.
Well, I mean, they got to deal with the cycle situation. There's no other way around it because other than that, it looks like they're just, I mean, it just looks like they're moving deck chairs around on the Titanic, like the moves they're making right now. And until that gets settled, there's no move that can really be made. And again, you got to deal with Jeff Skinner on the other, who's making a 10-pack himself. So what do you think? So, I mean, based on that now, Squid, what do you think of them sending back a first overall pick going back to Michigan? I think it was a good move.
Owen Power.
Yeah. Oh, what I call him, Owen Power. Sorry.
Yeah. I think it's a great decision by him personally. That he decided to go back to school because, I mean, at 18 years old, especially a defenseman, it's very, very difficult when you come into the National Hockey League in your first year. I don't care if it was the 80s, 70s, or now. It is very, very difficult as a defenseman. I think it's a great decision by him because he's going to get one more year of maturity, one more year of strength, and then perhaps he'll come in and he'll be ready to play in the National Hockey League. So there's nothing wrong, when I see teams that don't send a 19-year-old or an 18-year-old that's struggling back to junior, and I've heard it so many times. Well, if we send him back, he's going to be the best player in the country. Okay, is there something wrong with that? In my mind, that's probably the best thing for that kid because he's going to come back the next year with a lot more confidence in his ability, and you might see a completely different hockey player. So if a guy's struggling and he's 18 or 19 years old, get him back to junior and let him develop and mature.
Well, all he has to do is
and I think that's a great move by Power to go back and get one more year under his belt. Like I say, one more year of maturity, one more year of strength, and then, possibly he'll be ready to step right in and be a good defenseman right off the hop.
Well, all he has to do is look at the development or non-development of the fellow defenseman, Rasmus Dahlin, who was taken a couple years before him, number one overall, and where he has gone so far. He's gone sideways. So it's a good move. Well,
yep, absolutely.
I would think that, they got outside Eichel and Skinner. Their contracts are all very low, so they'll probably be a team that will move some assets. So they're a team that are going to be closely watched this year. And as you said, don't take your eye off the ball on these guys. And that's the best we can say about them. And Squid, it's that time again. I think the theme today is our good friend Axl Rose once said, all we need is just a little patience. So for Mikheyev, Leaf fans, and because we like the Bills and our southern neighbors hosted the Blue Jays, who won again today, by the way, for a while. They hosted them. Nice to see that. We'll throw a free one to the Sabres along with those other guys. Are you ready for this one?
Okay, I'm ready.
The two most powerful warriors are patience and time. Think about that.
That is very true in a lot of situations. And obviously building a hockey team is no different. I think those apply perfectly to the Buffalo Sabres right now because Kevin Adams is going to have patience, and he's going to have to, what was the other one?
Well, you're going to have some end time.
And time. So he's going to need some time, and he's going to have a lot of patience, not to make knee-jerk, deals and stuff like that. I think he's done a good job already getting a good return for Reinhart and for Ruotsalainen. I think he got excellent returns for those two guys. So all he's got to do is be patient and, wait a little bit of time and things will work out.
Well, and as we pointed out earlier, just take a look at the defending and current Stanley Cup champions. And it did they had a little bit of patience, they had a little bit of good luck, and they had some time on their side. And look at the end result. They won under a bubble, and they won under the pressure of this year. And they'll probably be a contender again next year. So have the faith, folks. And here we go. So anyway, I want to thank everybody for listening. Join us again next week. Same time, same place. Don't forget to tune into this week's podcast of Squid and the Ultimate Leafs Fan. It drops Friday at 6. Our guest this week is Rick Natras, who should have some interesting tales or has some interesting tales to tell this week. You'll be very enlightened and get some humor out of those ones. Another good friend of Squid's. But until then, let's keep winning, Jays. We're inching closer and closer to a playoff spot, and we'll talk to you guys all next week.